Your daughter is whispering to the janitor. The sentence slices the morning in half. It lands between the receptionist's casual smile and Lauren Pierce's curt nod, like a dropped glass that refuses to shatter. Belmont Academy hums polished floors, breathing backlight, a grandfather clock ticking like it owns time. Lauren turns on a heel, the click sharp. She hasn't heard her 7-year-old daughter say a single word in 11 months. "What did you just say?" Her voice is even edged. The receptionist stammers. Ella usually doesn't talk, but she said something to Mr. Callahan. Mr. Callahan, who, the janitor, the woman answers as if the word should come with a dustpan. Lauren is already moving, trench coat swinging. She stops at the narrow window of classroom 2B and looks in. There Ella, in a pale blue dress, curls tucked behind one ear. Cross-legged on a reading mat, she leans toward a tall man crouched beside her in gray overalls. Brown hair a little unruly. Hands nicked from work no one applauds. His head tilts in the universal posture of listening. Lauren cracks the door just enough to let in sound. "See you tomorrow," Ella says barely above a breath. "I'll be right here," the man answers. No indulgence, no surprise. Certainty. Lauren freezes. 11 months of appointments and laminated charts and careful games where a child never pushes air into sound, and now her daughter is saying goodbye to a stranger who probably smells like lemon cleaner and rain. She opens the door fully. "Ella, get your things. We're leaving." Ella startles, then rises and clutches her backpack. The man stands too. Up close, Lauren takes inventory the way she would a witness, late 30s. Eyes steady, presence unmoved. "You must be her mother," he says. "And you're the janitor who thinks he's a speech therapist, sharper than she intends." Something quiet moves through his eyes, pain or memory, then goes. "I don't think anything, ma'am. I just listened." "Well," she says, "composure clicking shut next time." "Leave the listening to professionals." Ella tugs at her sleeve. "Mom." One syllable whispered, a bird landing. Lauren's heart lurches, then folds back into a shape that can drive. "We're leaving," she repeats softer. To the man, "Thank you for whatever that was." Outside, winter air clings to spring like a grudge. Lauren's pace is courtroom fast. Ella's sneakers scuff to keep up. The sedan unlocks with a practiced beep. Doors close. The city turns watercolor behind glass. Lauren grips the wheel a second too long. 2 words from Ella. 2. And not to her. Back in the condo that floats over downtown, Lauren pours a red that's supposed to taste like cherries and resolve. The laptop opens with a chime. Fingers hover, then type JAKECALLAHAN Belmont Academy. The staff page offers a list and a void, no headshot, just a name under facilities. She narrows the search, Jake Callahan, speech therapist, New York. An old journal article surfaces, Innovative Approaches to Selective Mutism by Jacob Callahan. MS-CCC-SLP. Conference footage. Pediatric Trauma Awards. A life built on returning voices. Then the timeline ends 4 years ago. License inactive. No scandal, no obituary. A man who coaxed sound from silence simply vanished and now mops floors at her daughter's school. The next morning, she's back at Belmont before her inbox can start its siren. She finds him in the courtyard, kneeling beside a sullen fountain wrench in one hand and focus in the other. "Mr. Callahan," she calls. He stands, wipes his hands on a rag. "Miss Pierce." "I looked you up," she says. "You were a speech therapist. A good one, apparently. Why are you scrubbing fountains at a prep school? I like quiet places." That's not an answer. A breath that almost becomes a laugh. Maybe I gave all my answers away. Now I just listen. The pivot happens in a heartbeat the moment arrogance should rise in him, but doesn't the moment her certainty should harden, but cracks instead. She crosses her arms because armor is faster than honesty. "Did you know my daughter hasn't spoken to anyone in nearly a year?" I figured, he says. I heard her hum by the music room, barely. So I fixed a loose tile and didn't say a word. Next day, she sat closer. One morning, she asked, "Do you like stories?" I said yes. She started with that. Her voice snags. He nods. Sometimes kids don't stop speaking because they're broken. They stop because no one's really listening. You have no idea what she's been through. Lauren says warning and plea braided together, the divorce, the shouting. Doors I swore would never slam. You're right, he says, meeting her eyes without trying to own them. I don't know. But I know what silence sounds like when it isn't a choice. Tears sting. She hates that they do. She is a professional, a mother, a woman who survives Tuesday mornings. Stay away from her, she says, and hears herself sound like someone about to lose something. She turns to go and carries with her a sentence like a stone in a pocket. I'll be right here. The bell rings with private school clarity chimed to reassure donors. Children surge past in curated shoes, a river of belonging. Jake kneels again to tighten a thing that leaks. Ella lingers by a column watching a small moon unsure of orbit. She doesn't wave. He doesn't beckon. He just exists in a way that permits her to exist too. That night, Lauren doesn't open a deposition. She opens a window. The city exhales. She sits on Ella's bed, which smells like laundry and crayons, and a childhood she keeps trying to litigate into safety. Do you like stories? Lauren asks, voice careful, palms empty. Ella looks up, startled by the question rather than the person. Her hand finds her mother's like it has always known the route. She nods. Lauren doesn't launch into a fix. She just begins with a beginning more rhythm than plot. Somewhere a music box in a closet remembers how to sing. Somewhere else a man with rough hands sits in a small apartment and thinks about a girl who said goodbye like a promise. And in a quiet that finally feels earned, a mother chooses to listen. The next morning, Lauren ignores the blinking notifications on her phone. She doesn't go to her office. She doesn't check her docket. Instead, she walks back through the arched gates of Belmont Academy with a purpose that feels more dangerous than any courtroom. She finds him where the receptionist said he would be, by the courtyard fountain, kneeling on wet stone, a wrench in his hand, and the steady patience of a man fixing something the world barely notices. Water gurgles in uneven spurts, catching sunlight and throwing it against the red brick walls. Mr. Callahan, she calls, her voice cutting across the school's polite hum. He looks up, squinting, then stands wiping his hands on a rag tucked into his back pocket. Ms. Pierce, he says evenly, as though they'd left off on a pleasant note. I looked you up, she says, getting straight to the point. You were a speech therapist. A good one from what I saw, so why are you scrubbing fountains at a prep school? I like quiet places, he replies. No defensiveness in his tone. That's not an answer. He lets out a soft breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. Maybe I've given all the answers I had. Now I just listen. Her arms cross before she can stop them. Did you know my daughter hasn't spoken to anyone in nearly a year? I figured, he says, meeting her eyes. I heard her humming once near the music room. Barely audible. So I stayed where I was fixing a loose tile. Didn't say a word. The next day she sat closer. Then one morning she asked me, do you like stories? Lauren's breath catches. She started with that. He nods. I told her yes. The silence that follows feels heavier than the air between them. Sometimes kids don't stop speaking because they're broken, he adds quietly. They stop because no one's really listening. You have no idea what she's been through, she says, her voice firm but not cold. She saw me fall apart during the divorce. She heard things no child should hear, shouting, pleading, doors slamming. She saw her father leave and never come back. And the next morning she just stopped. You're right, he says without hesitation. I don't know all that, but I do know what silence sounds like when it's not a choice. His calm makes her bristle. She's used to arguments once she wins. This isn't an argument, it's something else. So what you think, I should just wait? Hope one day she forgives me enough to speak again. He studies her face like he's trying to hear the part of her she's not saying. What if he says slowly, she's waiting for you to stop talking and just hear her? The words hit harder than they should. Lauren feels her jaw tighten. She should turn, go back to the safety of things she can control. Instead, she's aware of the weight in her chest, the ache of knowing she can command a courtroom, but not a conversation with her own child. I don't have time for vague philosophy, she says, forcing steel into her tone. He doesn't flinch. It's not philosophy, it's presence. Lauren turns on her heel and starts toward the gate, each step echoing against the flagstones. But the words stick to her like rain on wool. She's waiting for you to stop talking and just hear her. At her car, she sees Ella through the classroom window, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside a stack of books. The girl's head is tilted toward the door as though she senses something or someone beyond it. Lauren's fingers tighten on the key fob. She wants to run inside, pull her daughter into her arms, demand that she never again give her voice to a stranger before her own mother. Instead, she slides into the driver's seat and starts the engine. The day drags. She sits in her glass-walled office, skimming briefs she doesn't absorb. In every reflection, her screen, the window, the framed degrees, she sees, not herself but her daughter, leaning toward a man in gray overalls saying words meant for him. By evening, she's pacing her condo, the skyline pressing in through the windows. She wants to shake off the image, but she can't. She knows about power. She knows about control. She knows that in her world, whoever controls the narrative wins. But for once, she doesn't have the narrative. She has a question. She grabs her phone, scrolls, hesitates, then finds herself typing his name again. Jake Callahan, Speech Therapy Conferences. There's a clip from 6 years ago, a younger man clean-shaven wearing a black blazer speaking to a room full of peers. His voice is measured, deliberate. The caption reads, "Restoring Lost Voices, Rewiring Silence After Trauma." But it's the pinned quote beneath the video that stops her. When a child stops speaking, don't ask what's wrong with them. Ask what the silence is trying to say. Lauren exhales slowly. Somewhere in the city, that man is fixing leaks and replacing light bulbs while her daughter whispers to him. She doesn't know yet if that's a problem to solve or a miracle to protect. She just knows she can't stop thinking about it. 2 days pass before Lauren gives in to the restlessness. She tells herself she's only at Belmont because she had an early court filing nearby, but her heels know the route too well. She finds Jake in a narrow hallway, balancing a bucket and a broom, as though he's navigating a tightrope. "We need to talk," she says. His eyebrows lift slightly. Privately, she nods. He gestures toward a side door leading her into a small, unused staff lounge. The air smells faintly of old chalk and lemon polish. A single window lets in muted winter light. She doesn't sit. "I want to understand something. My daughter has refused every professional I've hired. Top therapists, world-class clinics. And then out of nowhere, she starts talking to you, a janitor." "You say that like it's a diagnosis," he replies mildly. "I say it like it's not your profession." "Fair," he says, leaning the broom against the wall. He doesn't look cornered. He looks still. Lauren waits for an explanation, some admission that he's crossing a line. Instead, he just watches her. She doesn't talk. Lauren continues, her voice sharpening. "Not since she saw me break down during the divorce. She heard every word I swore she wouldn't heard me begging her father to stay. And the next morning she stopped speaking. The words hang between them. She hates that saying them aloud feels like a confession." "That's not your fault," Jake says softly. "Don't patronize me. I'm not. But you're trying to fix her like she's broken. She's not. She's protecting herself." Lauren's arms cross tighter, but the barb doesn't land the way she expects. "So what do I do? Just sit around and hope she forgives me enough to speak again?" He studies her face. "What if she's not waiting to forgive you? What if she's waiting for you to make space for her silence?" Her throat feels tight. "I talk for a living. I command rooms, cross-examine liars. I'm not gentle." "You don't have to be gentle," he says, sitting down at one of the old tables. "You just have to be present." She stares at the worn wood grain between them, unsure if she's angry or relieved. "Why did you stop practicing?" she asks finally, her voice quieter now. His gaze shifts to the window. "My wife," he says. Lauren looks up. She was a singer, jazz, the kind of voice that made you close your eyes when you listened. 2 weeks after our wedding, she found a lump in her throat. By the time we caught it, the damage was done. Lauren swallows. "I'm sorry. I tried everything: therapy, experimental treatments, silent singing techniques. But I wasn't helping her heal. I was just trying not to lose her. And then one day I realized cancer didn't take her. Silence did. The room goes still. The only sound is the faint hum of the old radiator." He continues, "I walked away from the work after that. I couldn't sit across from another child trying to give them something I couldn't give the person I loved most. Lauren feels something in her chest shift. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition. The quiet shame of failing someone you swore you'd protect. She exhales slowly. Is that why you work here, to disappear partly? But then Ella sat next to me one day while I was fixing a heater. She didn't say a word, just listened. The next day she brought a book pointed to a sentence. Then she whispered, "Do you like stories?" That was her first line to you. He nods. She hasn't said it to anyone since she was 4. But it wasn't for me. It was her way of asking, "Will you sit with me in this silence?" And I did. Lauren's hand rests against the back of a chair, the tension in her shoulders loosening just enough for her to notice it. Before she leaves, she asks, "Will you keep talking to her?" "Only if she wants me to, you." The words follow her out of the lounge into the bright hallway, where children's voices rise and fall like the tide. That night, Lauren knocks softly on Ella's bedroom door. Her daughter is sitting cross-legged on the bed, crayons scattered like tiny flags. Lauren doesn't demand eye contact or answers. Instead, she sits down beside her and says, "Do you like stories?" Ella looks up, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Then slowly she reaches out and takes her mother's hand. No words, but maybe, just maybe, the beginning of one. The courtroom is a cathedral of control, and Lauren usually thrives in its echo. But today she's distracted. Every time opposing counsel opens his mouth, her mind flashes to the faint smile of a man crouched by a fountain and the way Ella's voice had curled around him like it belonged there. She wins the motion. Of course, Lauren always wins, but she leaves the courthouse without the usual surge of satisfaction. By the time she's back in her office, the glass walls feel like a display case for someone she no longer recognizes. She sits at her desk and pulls her laptop closer. She should be reviewing deposition notes. Instead, she types Jake Callahan Speech Therapy Conference. A half-dozen videos appear. She clicks the first. On screen, a younger Jake stands at a podium. Clean-shaven, black blazer, shoulders squared but not rigid. His voice is steady, each word deliberate, like he's carrying something fragile to its destination. When a child stops speaking, he tells the audience, "Don't ask what's wrong with them. Ask what the silence is trying to say." The clip ends. Lauren sits back, the words echoing in her head. They're not new words. Therapists had said variations to her before, but from him they feel different. Maybe because he's not trying to diagnose. He's trying to understand. That evening, the city glows gold against the condo's glass walls. Lauren makes grilled cheese sandwiches, simple, unpretentious, the one thing Ella will always finish. They eat at the small kitchen island, the hum of traffic seeping in from below. Ella nibbles at the crusts. Her gaze is fixed on the skyline as though the lights are speaking in a language only she knows. "Did you have a good book group today?" Lauren asks. Ella nods, eyes still on the window. "Did Mr. Callahan say anything funny again?" There's a pause. Then softly, he said, "Silence is like a blanket, but you still get cold if no one's under it with you." Lauren's breath stills. The sandwich in her hand feels suddenly heavy. She studies her daughter's face, the faint shadows under her eyes, the way her mouth presses into thought. "What do you think that means?" Lauren asks carefully. Ella shrugs, but her voice is quiet and certain. "I think he means it's nicer when someone sits with you." Lauren nods slowly, but her mind is far away back in a dusty lounge, hearing him talk about a singer who lost her voice, and in the courtyard where water dripped from a fountain, and he said he'd just been listening. She doesn't know yet if she trusts him. She's not even sure she trusts herself in this. But she can't deny that her daughter, her silent, careful daughter, is speaking again, and the words are about him. Later, when Ella is asleep, Lauren stands at the balcony wine glass, untouched in her hand. The city hums beneath her feet. She thinks about blankets, about silence, and about a man who seems to understand both better than she does. Her phone is on the counter behind her. She could call him, ask what he meant, but some part of her already knows the answer, and that's what keeps her staring into the night a little longer than usual. Lauren tells herself she's only at Belmont for a quick drop-off, but she doesn't head straight for the exit. Her heels slow in the hallway, drawn toward the faint notes drifting from the music room. Through the half-open door, she sees Jake leaning against the wall, mop in hand, while Ella sits at the upright piano. Her fingers press uncertain keys, searching for something. It's not a song so much as a memory being sounded out one note at a time. Lauren steps inside quietly. What is she playing? Jake glances at her, then back at the piano. Not sure he says with a faint smile, but it sounds like her. Lauren moves closer. I never taught her to play. We had a keyboard once, but it mostly collected dust. She's not playing with her hands, he says. She's remembering with her heart. The words catch her off guard. I'm not sure I know how to do that, she admits before she can stop herself. You will, he says. Most people wait for children to perform. Ella's just asking to be heard. Minutes later, Ella emerges a small folder of sheet music clutched to her chest. She stops short when she sees her mother in the doorway. You came, she says softly. Lauren kneels to meet her eyes. Of course I did. Ella glances over her shoulder at Jake, who gives her an encouraging nod. Can we go to the park, she asks. The one with the lake. Lauren blinks. Ella hasn't asked to go anywhere in nearly a year. We can, she says, her voice warm but tentative. Right now. The late afternoon sun glances off the water as they walk along the shore. Ducks drift lazily unbothered by the weight of human silence. They find a bench, and for a while Lauren doesn't speak. She doesn't know if she's supposed to. Why did you stop listening to music? Ella asks suddenly. Lauren turns toward her. What do you mean? After Dad left, Ella says, the house got so quiet, but not the kind you like. Lauren exhales. I didn't want to hear songs that reminded me of who we used to be. Ella looks down, fidgeting with the hem of her dress. I thought maybe it was because of me. The words hit like a stone dropped in deep water. No, Lauren says firmly, cupping her daughter's cheek. Sweetheart, it was never you. I was trying to be strong. I thought silence meant I was holding it together. But sometimes Ella murmurs, it felt like you disappeared with him. Lauren closes her eyes. It's the kind of truth that lands without malice but leaves a mark. I'm sorry, she whispers. I didn't mean to leave you in the quiet. That night back at the condo, Lauren finds herself digging through the hallway closet. Boxes of holiday decorations, old trial binders, a dusty Bluetooth speaker, and at the bottom, a small velvet box. She opens it to reveal an old wind-up music box, silver-edged, its lacquer worn smooth. She winds it slowly, and the soft melody spills out. Ella appears in the doorway, her eyes wide. That's it, she says. That's what I was trying to play on the piano. I remember it from bedtime, before everything got quiet. Lauren kneels, the tune wrapping around them both. I didn't know you still remembered that sound. Ella looks at her for a long, quiet moment. I remember everything. Lauren pulls her close, the music box between them, the notes fragile but steady, just like the space they're starting to rebuild. The next afternoon, Lauren walks into Belmont with the music box wrapped carefully in a scarf. She doesn't go to the office or the front desk. She heads straight for the forgotten music room at the end of the South Hall. Inside, the sunlight is softer, filtered through tall windows smudged by years of fingerprints. A few old instruments line the walls, a violin with one string missing a drum, with a dent in its side, the upright piano with its keys worn to ivory shadows. Jake is already there, sitting beside Ella at the bench. Her feet don't quite reach the floor, swinging gently as she studies a piece of sheet music. Lauren clears her throat, and both heads turn. I brought something, she says, unwrapping the scarf. The music box gleams faintly in the dusty light. Ella's eyes widen. That's it? I thought you might want to learn the whole song, Lauren says. Jake smiles faintly. We can do that. He sets the music box on top of the piano and winds it once. The melody threads through the room, delicate and uneven, like a voice still warming up after too long in silence. He leans toward Ella, pointing to the keys. Each note is like a word he tells her. You don't have to rush it, just feel it. Lauren takes a seat on a nearby bench. For once, she doesn't analyze the moment, doesn't try to catalog it for later. She just listens to the faltering notes, the scrape of the bench, as Jake shifts beside Ella, the small exhale her daughter makes when she gets a phrase right. Something inside her unclenches. When the practice ends, Ella traces her fingers over the music box, almost like she's making sure it's real. Jake closes the lid gently. Same time tomorrow, Ella nods, a shy smile tugging at her mouth. As they walk back toward the parking lot, Lauren falls into step with Jake. If this, she gestures back toward the music room, were therapy, would you charge me? He looks at her with quiet amusement. No. Good, she says. Because I'd rather call it something else. He tilts his head. What would you call it? They've stopped just short of the lot. The air smells faintly of cut grass and chalk dust. She meets his eyes. Redemption. Something shifts in his expression, surprise maybe, but also understanding. That night, Lauren tucks Ella into bed with the music box playing on the nightstand. She kisses her daughter's forehead, but instead of turning it off once Ella's eyes close, she leaves it running. The melody drifts into the hallway down the stairs and into the living room, where Lauren sits with a cup of tea gone cold. She doesn't care. She lets it play. In another part of the city, Jake leans against the doorframe of his small apartment, listening to the quiet. For the first time in years, it doesn't feel like a wall. It feels like a room he's allowed to walk out of. The long table in Belmont Academy's library gleams under pendant lights, polished to the point where you can see your own hesitation reflected back. Lauren sits at one end, spine straight, the measured poise of a trial attorney who knows she's walking into crossfire. Across from her, the parent advisory board members shuffle papers they clearly don't need. At the head is Mrs. Callahan, pearl necklace, perfect posture, and a voice as smooth as sanded wood. We've received several concerns, Mrs. Callahan begins, regarding unorthodox behavior. Unsupervised time between students and custodial staff. Lauren doesn't blink. You mean Jake Callahan? A pause. Yes. Mr. Callahan, has there been a complaint from my daughter? No, but from her teacher. From the principal. Mrs. Callahan hesitates. No. From anyone who actually knows what's happening. The air tightens. A man down the table, dentist or hedge fund manager, Lauren doesn't care, clears his throat. It's not personal, Miss Pierce. It's about optics. The school has standards. Lauren leans forward, her tone even but lethal. You want optics. Try being a mother watching her child go silent while every expert fails. Try knowing your daughter feels invisible, and the only person who makes her feel safe is a janitor you want to dismiss because of what it looks like. Mrs. Callahan folds her hands, unruffled but not unmoved. We have to consider potential risks. Risk, Lauren says, is letting a child believe her voice doesn't matter because the only person who hears it doesn't fit your picture of credibility. Before anyone can respond, the library door opens. A secretary leans in, whispers to Mrs. Callahan. The pearl necklace stills against her throat. There's been an incident in the common area, she announces. 2 students had a disagreement. Lauren is already on her feet. Is it Ella? I believe so. The hallway outside is buzzing, students frozen, mid-whisper, teachers moving quickly, a security guard holding back the crowd. Lauren's pulse hammers as she reaches the glass-walled commons. Inside, Ella stands beside an older girl clutching her cheek. Ella's fists are clenched, her face pale, but it's the sound that freezes Lauren. I said, stop. Ella says loud and trembling. You pushed my book off the table. I asked you to stop 3 times. You didn't. The other girl stammers. It was just a joke. You knew it wasn't. Ella snaps. You know I hate it when people touch my things without asking. The principal steps forward, but Lauren is already inside. She crouches beside her daughter, resting a hand on her shoulder. I heard you, she says quietly. Every word. Ella's eyes shine not with tears, but with something fiercer. She didn't listen, so I made her hear me. Lauren pulls her close. I'm proud of you. Back in the library, Mrs. Callahan begins, I believe this changes things. No. Lauren interrupts, standing tall. This reveals things. Ella didn't just speak, she advocated for herself. Because someone gave her permission to believe her words were worth hearing. If you remove Jake Callahan, you won't just silence a janitor. You'll silence every kid like her. So make your choice knowing who you're choosing not to listen to. She leaves before they can answer the echo of her heels, a verdict in itself. Evening settles over Belmont in muted shades of gold and gray. The parking lot is almost empty when Lauren steps out of her car and heads for the custodian's closet tucked behind the gym. The hallway smells faintly of floor wax, an old paper school scent that somehow feels steadier than her own condo. She knocks once. The door opens to Jake's shirt sleeves, rolled hair, slightly tousled, a pencil tucked behind his ear. "I heard," he says softly. "You always do," she replies. Her voice is warm but edged with something raw. "She spoke today. She roared." A flicker of a smile touches his mouth. That's the most powerful use of language when it protects. Lauren leans against the doorframe. For a moment she studies him the way she does a witness she can't decide is hostile or invaluable. You've spent so long helping other people be heard, you've forgotten you have something to say too. He tilts his head. Like what? She steps a little closer. Like how you feel about this place, about her, about me. His gaze holds hers for a beat before drifting away. I feel like I've been standing in a hallway between the past and the future, and today for the first time I didn't want to go back. Her voice drops. Then don't. Jake leans back against the frame, the faintest trace of surprise in his eyes. You make it sound easy. It's not, she admits. But you're the one who told me silence can protect. Maybe now it can carry you forward too. For a while neither of them speaks. The quiet isn't heavy, it's safe. When she turns to leave, Jake calls after her. Lauren. She pauses. Ivy didn't need fixing, he says. She just needed someone who remembered what it's like to lose their voice. Her throat tightens. And you, I needed to matter without saving anyone. She nods slowly, understanding more than she expected to. Maybe that's what we're both learning. As she walks back through the dim corridor, Lauren feels the difference in her steps. For months, she's been walking away from things, her ex, her guilt, her daughter's silence. Tonight, she realizes she's walking toward something, and she's not doing it alone. Lauren starts showing up in places she never used to, small, unannounced appearances that don't fit neatly into her calendar. One rainy Tuesday, she waits outside the music room with 2 paper cups in hand. When the door opens, Jake steps out, surprised. I thought you drank espresso, he says. I've downgraded, she replies, passing him the coffee. Trying to be less sharp. He smirks faintly. You're not sharp, Lauren. You're armored. There's a difference. She doesn't answer right away, just follows him down the hall toward the courtyard benches. The air smells like wet stone and pencil shavings. Students drift past, their chatter fading as the two of them settle onto the cold wood. This is strange, she admits. Talking without an agenda. That's how you know it matters, he says, sipping from his cup. Lauren studies him. I used to think words were weapons. Now I'm wondering if they're actually bridges, and I just never crossed them. He nods slowly. My wife used to say the most powerful part of a conversation isn't the sentence, it's the silence between them. The mention of Marina lands gently now, like a note in a familiar song. You miss her, Lauren says quietly. Every day he answers, but there's no collapse in his tone. I don't live in the missing anymore. I live in the remembering. They sit in the drizzle a while longer, watching raindrops ripple across the fountain pool. Later that week, Lauren finds a small package outside her office door. Inside is a second-hand copy of The Velveteen Rabbit, its spine-worn pages slightly yellowed. A sticky note rests inside the cover. Because real things can't be ugly, they're just loved differently. Ella told me this last night. Thought you should know. Jay. She flips through the book slowly, fingers tracing over the lines. She hasn't read it since she was a child, but she remembers the ending. Once you are real, you can't become unreal again. It lasts for always. That evening, she sits with Ella on the couch, the book open between them. Want me to read to you, she asks. Ella leans against her, nodding. As Lauren reads, she glances at the music box on the table, at her daughter's steady breathing, at the rain streaking the glass beyond. She doesn't need to fill the space with more words. The story is enough. The company is enough. And for the first time in years, the quiet feels like home. Spring light filters through the tall windows of Belmont's library. Soft and honeyed dust motes drifting like slow confetti. At a corner table, Ella sits with her legs tucked under her chair, pencil poised above a blank sheet of paper. The assignment at the top reads, Who is your hero? Lauren arrives earlier than usual, her heels muted on the carpet. She's taken the rest of the week off a first in longer than she can remember. Jake meets her at the entrance. She's in the library, he says before she can ask. Of course she is, Lauren murmurs. I think she's writing something important, he adds. Lauren smiles faintly. She always is. But before she can move away, he touches her sleeve lightly. She watches you, you know when you're not looking. When you walk in, she straightens her back, sits taller. She wants to be worthy of being seen by you. Lauren's throat tightens. I never meant to make her feel that way, I know. But sometimes even love wears armor. When Lauren approaches, Ella glances up. Can I sit? She asks. Of course, Lauren says, folding her hands in her lap. Don't read it yet, Ella warns. I won't. I'll just sit with you. For 10 quiet minutes, Lauren watches her daughter's pencil dance again. Finally, Ella exhales. Done. But I want Mr. Jake to read it first. They find him in the music room tuning an old violin. Ella hands him the paper. He accepts it like it's something fragile. My hero is Mr. Jake, he reads. He doesn't wear a cape or fix things with tools. He fixes them by listening. He listened to me when no one else could hear me. He never asked me to be louder, just honest. He showed me that silence isn't scary and that talking isn't about being right, it's about being real. He's my hero because he never tried to rescue me. He just stayed close until I rescued myself. The room goes still. Jake folds the paper carefully. May I keep this? It's yours, Ella says. Lauren looks at her daughter, eyes shimmering. You didn't even mention me, she teases gently. Ella turns startled. Mom, you're not my hero. Lauren blinks, trying not to show the sting. You're my home, Ella says simply. Heroes come and go, but home, that's forever. The words hit deeper than any verdict Lauren has ever won. She pulls her daughter into her arms, feeling something settle that's been loose for far too long. The park is waking up to spring. Tiny buds cling to branches, and a few brave daffodils open their yellow faces to the breeze. Lauren and Ella walk hand in hand along the familiar gravel path, the lake ahead shimmering in pale sunlight. They stop at a bench overlooking the water. Isn't this the one Lauren asks? Ella nods. Where we talked after piano. Lauren sits the wooden slats, warm from the afternoon sun. I still think about that day, she says. I do too, Ella answers. Do you remember what I said to you? You said, you came back. I meant it, Ella says quietly. I chose to. From her small backpack, she pulls a folded piece of paper. This is for you. It's not homework. Lauren unfolds it to find a drawing, two figures holding hands, a music box between them. Musical notes float out, but instead of notes, they're hearts. Above it, in careful block letters, love doesn't always sound like a song. Sometimes it sounds like someone who stayed. Lauren feels the tears before they reach her eyes. Not the courtroom kind she can blink away, but the quiet kind that belong entirely to her. At the same time across campus, Jake is in a small classroom rearranging chairs into a circle. On the chalkboard, he's written, "Tell it how you feel it, even if it's quiet." It's the start of a pilot program, part music, part conversation for kids who need a safe place to use their voices. No media, no ribbon cutting, just 10 children, 2 old instruments and a music box on the piano. Later, when Lauren stops by to see the setup, she catches him wiping chalk dust from his hands. It's a good idea, she says. He shrugs lightly. It's not about ideas, it's about space. They just need somewhere they can speak without having to prove anything. You think it'll work? I think it already has. That evening, he shows up at her apartment with something wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. This is for Ella, he says. She unwraps it slowly, an old leather-bound notebook. Its pages lined with hand-sketched music notes and personal markings. This was Marina's, wasn't it? Lauren asks. He nods. The last thing she wrote in before she lost her voice. I thought Ella might want to make it hers. Lauren's fingers trace the worn cover. You're giving this away, I'm passing it on. That night, Ella sits cross-legged on the living room rug, the notebook open in front of her. Jake shows her how to read the scrawled notations explaining each mark with the patience of someone who knows music is more than sound, it's memory. From the couch, Lauren watches them, feeling as though the three of them are playing the same song now, even if none of them has named it yet. The end-of-year ceremony at Belmont fills the auditorium with a warm hum of voices. Folding chairs line the polished floor, stage lights bathe the red curtain in a soft glow. and parents lean forward with cameras ready. But near the front row, Ella sits with a folded piece of paper in her lap, her shiny black shoes swinging just above the floor. Backstage, Jake crouches beside her. "You don't have to read it all," he says, gently, "just the parts that feel true today." Ella bites her lip. "What if I forget?" "Then speak from where it still lives inside you," he says. "That's where the best words come from." She nods, then turns to her mother. "Will you be where I can see you?" Lauren kneels so their eyes are level. "I'll be front row. I'll never not be where you can see me again." The principal takes the stage, offers thanks and applause, then announces something new. "For the first time, our closing speech will be given by a student whose journey reminds us that finding your voice isn't about being the loudest. It's about speaking when it matters. Please welcome Ella Pierce." Ella steps into the light. For a heartbeat, the room holds its breath. She scans the crowd until she finds Lauren, then Jake, in the wings. She unfolds her paper and begins. "Hi. I used to be quiet, not because I had nothing to say, but because I didn't know if anyone wanted to hear it. Then someone did. He was the janitor. He didn't ask me to speak. He just stayed. And somehow, that made me want to." The room is utterly still. My mom is here too. She's a lawyer, a very good one. For a while I thought she only listened in court, but now she listens in the car at bedtime in the quiet. Sometimes when she doesn't know what to say, she just holds my hand. That's even better. Ella glances down at her notes, then folds them closed. I learned that voices are like music. They don't all sound the same. Some are loud, some are soft. Some stay hidden for a long time. But when they come out, they deserve a place to land. Thank you to Mr. Jake for giving my voice a place to land. And thank you to my mom for giving it a place to grow. I'm not afraid to speak anymore because I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be me. When she finishes, the applause is not a roar but a reverent swell, as though no one wants to break the spell she's cast. Jake doesn't bother to hide the wetness in his eyes. Lauren stands, her smile breaking open with pride. Backstage, Ella runs first into Jake's arms. "You did it," he whispers. "You said I would," she replies. Lauren joins them, wrapping her daughter close. "You didn't just speak, sweetheart, you moved an entire room." Ella looks between them. "Can we get pancakes now?" Jake laughs. Now that's a proper ending. Outside, the summer air is golden and free. They walk toward the parking lot together, hands linked. There are no speeches now, no stage lights, just the kind of silence that feels full instead of empty. As they reach the car, Ella tilts her head. "Are we a story?" Lauren smiles. "We're the story." Jake nods. And the best part is, we're still writing it. Some stories begin with a voice. Others begin with silence. But the ones you remember forever are the ones where someone finally listens. Your thoughts help us create stories that matter. And if you'd like more powerful healing stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you never miss a new episode. And most importantly, share this video with someone who needs a little hope today. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. We see you, we hear you, and we're honored to tell these stories for you. "You're bathing my son like a stray dog." The voice lashes through the warm California air like a whip. Ethan Cole freezes garden hose still running in his hand. Droplets catch the late afternoon light, scattering into tiny rainbows as they fall over Mason's dark curls. The boy sits in a wide plastic tub on the stone patio, giggling, little fists pounding the water into frothy splashes. For a breathless second, everything halts: the breeze, the laughter, even the shimmer of the water in the sun. Vanessa Carrington stands at the edge of the marble path, stilettos biting into the grout between the tiles. Her perfectly tailored black pantsuit is rumpled from haste, the sunglasses perched on her nose, failing to hide the steel in her eyes. She's not supposed to be here. The board meeting in San Francisco was meant to run late. Yet here she is, home early and not liking what she's seeing. Ethan turns slowly, setting the hose down with deliberate care. His uniform shirt is half-wet, sleeves rolled up to forearms flecked with freckles and dried droplets. He doesn't speak. Neither does Mason, who blinks up at the woman in the doorway. The boy's smile doesn't vanish, it just pauses, as if waiting for permission to keep it. "I asked you a question," Vanessa says again, voice sharper. Ethan stands to his full height, meeting her gaze with a calm that only deepens her irritation. He got muddy. He answers simply. He was playing, and your first thought was to drag him outside and spray him down like she breaks off hand slicing the air. Like this. Mason laughs again, oblivious, sending a fresh wave of water over Ethan's pants. Ethan doesn't even look down. I didn't drag him anywhere. He asked for water time. He laughed, Ms. Carrington. He laughed. Vanessa's jaw tightens. My son had music therapy at 3 structured play at 4. I come home to find him half naked in a plastic bin while my janitor plays summer camp. You came home early, Ethan replies evenly. That's not the point. No, he says. But maybe it's the problem. Her eyes flash. Excuse me. Ethan crouches beside Mason again. The boy reaches up, tiny fingers hooking around one of his shirt buttons. Ethan's voice softens. You know what he told me when I filled this tub? Daddy used to fill water here. No more water time. Mommy doesn't like mess. Vanessa flinches almost imperceptibly. I didn't plan this, Ethan continues. The upstairs water was off for pipe work. He was already muddy. Sun was out, hose was near, and he wanted to laugh. Mason holds up a plastic dinosaur. Roar, he whispers to his mother, offering it like a peace treaty. It doesn't work. Mr. Cole, Vanessa says coolly, You're here to clean floors, not parent my child. And yet Ethan replies, Gaze steady. You left him with me. The silence that follows is sharper than her words. She hates that it stings. Ethan wraps Mason in a towel with the ease of someone who's done it before. The boy leans into him without hesitation. Vanessa notices and hates noticing. You're dismissed for the day, she says, brittle. HR will follow up. I'm not on contract, he answers. Day-to-day hire. You want me gone, say the word. But maybe ask your son first. She opens her mouth, but nothing comes out. Mason still damp looks from one to the other. Happy, he says softly. Vanessa blinks. What? He points at Ethan. We happy. The words land in her chest like stones dropped into deep water. Ethan doesn't gloat, doesn't smile. He simply hands Mason to the nanny who's appeared silently at the back door, then collects his cleaning cart and wheels it away. Vanessa stands there long after the patio stops dripping, unsure what she hates more, the mess or the way her son looked at the janitor like he was the safest place in the world. That night, long after Mason's bedtime, Vanessa sits alone in her kitchen espresso, cooling untouched on the marble island. Her executive assistant, Rachel, stands opposite, tablet in hand. I want a full background check on him, Vanessa says without looking up. Rachel blinks. The janitor. Yes, the janitor. The marble gleams under the lights. Everything is pristine except the inside of Vanessa's chest, which feels cracked open since that scene on the patio. Rachel hesitates, then taps the request into her screen. Ethan Cole. He's only been here 6 weeks. Exactly. And in 6 weeks, my son says more to him than to his own mother. That's not necessarily bad, Rachel offers cautiously. Some people have warm energy, especially with kids. Vanessa's gaze sharpens. I need to know who he is before I let him put another drop of water on my child. 2 hours later, Rachel returns to Vanessa's home office. Vanessa is staring at architectural blueprints on her desk, but her eyes aren't following the lines. Here it is, Rachel says, placing a folder on the desk. Vanessa flips it open, her polished nails tapping against the paper. The first page shows Ethan's name and birth date, then a concise timeline of his career. Former structural engineer Montrose and Klein in Seattle, multiple awards for sustainable housing projects. A small photograph from an old press release catches her eye. Ethan clean-shaven shaking hands with a mayor while holding a plaque. Rachel continues masters from Stanford. Married. Wife passed away 3 years ago, childbirth complications. 1 son. No criminal record. No debts. Clean as snow. Vanessa turns another page. There's a Seattle Times clipping with the headline, Young Engineer Wins National Humanitarian Award for Green Community Design. In the photo, Ethan is smiling a small girl from the project's pilot shelter perched on his hip. Her voice is flat. Why is he a janitor? Rachel shrugs. After his wife died, he walked away from everything. Took custody of his son, moved here. Started picking up odd jobs. Odd jobs? Vanessa repeats, her eyes still scanning the file. I guess floors are quieter than grief. The line hangs between them. Vanessa closes the folder. He's too involved with Mason. Rachel frowns. Too involved or just involved? Vanessa stands and walks to the window. Outside the garden is spotless, the stone patio still faintly wet from earlier. Mason's attaching to him. That's not healthy. I don't need someone who plays parent. I need someone who does their job. Rachel hesitates. Maybe he's doing the job you didn't know your son needed most. Vanessa turns sharply. You're speaking out of line. Rachel doesn't flinch. No. I'm speaking as someone who watched a little boy cry for the first time because someone left. The words land harder than Vanessa expects. She straightens her shoulders. I want him gone by the end of the day. Make sure he understands it's not personal. In the late afternoon, Rachel finds Ethan in the garage wiping down a maintenance cart. The faint smell of lemon cleaner hangs in the air. She holds out an envelope. Vanessa's making a staffing change. Ethan glances at the envelope, then at her. I figured. No one's angry, Rachel says quickly. She just prefers more structure. Ethan wipes his hands on a rag, then leans back against the workbench. She runs her life like a blueprint. I'm a stain she can't scrub out. Rachel smiles faintly. Maybe you're more like a misdrawn line, the kind that changes the whole design for the better. For the first time, something like gratitude flickers in his tired eyes. Tell her. He stops, then tries again. Tell her Mason never cried with me, but he always missed her. That evening, the house is unusually quiet. Vanessa walks past Mason's room, expecting to hear giggles or the murmur of a bedtime story. Instead, there's nothing, just the faint hum of the air conditioning. She pushes the door open. Mason is lying on his back, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Sweetheart, it's time to sleep, she says softly. He doesn't turn his head. Would you like your book? No answer. She sits on the edge of his bed and rests her hand on his small back, warm, unmoving, then barely above a whisper. Did Daddy go away? Her breath catches. What? Daddy? Ethan Mason murmurs. Did he leave? Because I laughed too loud. The question pierces through layers Vanessa didn't know she had. She wants to say no, to tell him that wasn't it at all, but the truth tangles between her throat and her pride. He just had to go home, honey. Mason blinks slowly. I don't like home when he's not here. The words leave her sitting in the dark long after his eyes close, the echo of them following her down the hall. The next afternoon, Vanessa stands in the upstairs hallway outside the bathroom. Steam curls under the door. Mason's new nanny, a woman with an impeccable resume and the emotional warmth of a marble countertop, is inside with him. Through the crack, Vanessa hears Mason's voice, high, trembling. No water. No water. The nanny's tone is brisk. You love baths, Mason. Come now, in you go. Vanessa steps inside. The tub is already full, lavender-scented bubbles stacked high, rubber ducks bobbing on the surface. Mason stands beside it, fists clenched at his sides, shaking. Try again, the nanny says, reaching for his wrist. Mason jerks back. Stop! Let him be! Vanessa says sharply. Louder than she meant to. The nanny blinks. Ma'am, if we give in, we set a precedent. I'll pay your full rate, Vanessa interrupts. But please leave for the day. There's a moment of tension, but the nanny finally obeys, gathering her bag and clicking down the hall. When the door shuts behind her, the air in the bathroom loosens. Vanessa crouches, bringing herself level with Mason. Hey, she says gently. His face is blotchy, his nose running. No water, he whispers. But you love water, she reminds him softly. You loved it yesterday. Not with her, Mason insists. Vanessa tilts her head. Why not? He looks up, lip trembling. Because she doesn't laugh. 3 words, and something inside Vanessa splits wide open. She sits by the tub, unsure of what to do next. Her fingers fidget in her lap. Mason sniffs from the corner, arms wrapped around his knees. You want me to read you something? She asks. He shakes his head. I could put on your music. Another shake. The silence thickens until it's almost unbearable. Then, without thinking too much, Vanessa rolls up her silk sleeves, dips her hand into the water, and splashes. Mason looks up, startled. Did you hear that she whispers, eyes wide with mock seriousness? He blinks. I think she says slowly, there's a water monster in here. A very naughty one. She splashes again, bigger this time. Mason's lip twitches. She splashes once more, sending water onto her blouse. She gasps dramatically. He got me, Mason. Help! Only you can stop him. There's a pause, then a giggle, small, fragile, but real. Mason crawls toward the tub, dips a hand in, then a foot. Splash! Water erupts everywhere, soaking her from head to toe. Her expensive shirt clings to her ribs. Her hair falls out of place, but she's laughing. Not polite, controlled laughter, but the kind that leaves her breathless. Got him! Mason shouts, stomping in the tub. You did, she says, grinning. For the first time in a long time, Vanessa Carrington, titan of glass towers and billion-dollar deals, sits cross-legged on a tile floor, drenched and smiling because her son is laughing with her. And yet deep down she knows she hasn't won. She's only remembered. That night she dries Mason off herself, helps him into pajamas, and kisses a small bruise on his shin without thinking. Mommy, Mason says, as she tucks him in, Yes, baby, can we go find Daddy Ethan? Her heart twists. He had to go back to his home, sweetie. Mason's eyes are heavy-lidded. Home is where people wait for you, he murmurs. I'm waiting here. Vanessa sits there long after he drifts to sleep, his words pressing against her chest. The attic smells faintly of cedar and dust, the air heavy with the kind of quiet that feels untouched for years. Vanessa's heels click softly on the wooden boards as she moves past boxes labeled in Rachel's tidy handwriting. Financials 2019 Press Kits Legal Archives. One pushed into the corner catches her attention. Staff Temporary 1099 Archive. She drags it out, the cardboard scuffing the floor. Inside are old payroll copies and onboarding forms. Near the bottom, she finds a slim manila folder with a name typed neatly across the tab. Ethan Cole. Sinking down cross-legged in her linen slacks, she opens it. The resume is laid out in plain, blocky font bachelor's and civil engineering master's from Stanford. Glowing letters of recommendation from CEOs, nonprofit directors, and even a former mayor. Taped inside is a crumpled newspaper clipping from the Seattle Times engineer wins National Humanitarian Award for Green Community Design. The photo shows a younger Ethan in a collared shirt smiling into a sea of camera flashes, holding a small girl on his hip. The caption says she's from the project's pilot shelter, but the way he holds her is something else entirely protective, certain. Beneath the article, a worn envelope hides a stack of hand-drawn blueprints. The first is for a community center shaped like a semicircle, its courtyard framed by trees and curved benches like open arms, rainwater harvesting tanks, reading nooks, sand and water play areas, all labeled in his neat handwriting. At the bottom, if we build like children deserve to be happy, the world might finally listen. Another sheet is marked Dream Draft Only. This one is personal, a modest house with one master room, one child's room, a central kitchen flooded with light, and a wraparound porch. Below the title box, For Laura, for who we would have become. Vanessa exhales slowly. This isn't a janitor. This is a man who once designed futures. The next afternoon, Vanessa pulls into a quiet street lined with faded fences and chalk drawings on driveways. Ethan's bungalow is small, its porch steps cracked a set of wind chimes, whispering in the breeze. When he opens the door, he's in jeans and a gray t-shirt, a dish towel in his hand. His eyes flicker with surprise. Miss Carrington, I wanted to talk. He steps aside. You came all this way. I found your plans, she says once inside. The house, the shelter, the community circle. They're beautiful. He doesn't move. I didn't know, she adds. About Laura. About your work. About what you gave up. I wasn't hiding it, he says, folding the towel with slow precision. I just wasn't offering. Why this job, she asks. His gaze is steady. Because the only place my son heard another child laugh was your backyard. The answer is a blow she doesn't see coming. I took the job to pay bills. He continues quietly. I stayed because Mason found someone to echo with. You were building silence around him. I couldn't let him forget what joy sounded like. Vanessa swallows hard. Do you think I'm a bad mother? I think you're scared, he says simply. Of noise. Of losing control. Of getting it wrong. She blinks, fighting the tightness in her throat. I was just trying to protect him. Then start by protecting what matters, he says. Not the schedule, not the image, just his heart. There's a long pause. Her voice wavers. Would you ever finish the project, the one for the kids? He looks away. I don't know. What if I helped? She offers. His eyes turn to hers, then searching, measured. Why would you want to build something like that? Her answer is softer than she expects. Because I'm starting to realize I've built a life no one wants to live inside. The storm comes in sudden, heavy-handed sheets, hammering the glass panels of Vanessa's sunroom and turning the ivy on the walls into dripping curtains. Thunder rolls somewhere beyond the hills, low and insistent, like a warning she's already too late to heed. She's in her office, phone to her ear. Did you reschedule the board call? Yes, ma'am, Rachel replies. There's a pause. But there's another issue. Vanessa's brow tightens. What issue? Mason's not in his room. Vanessa straightens. What do you mean, not in his room? I mean, Rachel's voice drops. He's outside. In the rain. The phone slips from Vanessa's hand, bouncing off the armchair as she's already moving. The backyard is chaos, water pooling across the patio, concrete slick under her heels, rain blurring everything into a smear of silver and green. She spots him under the table, knees tucked to his chest, hoodie soaked through small body trembling. She drops to her knees beside him, pulling him into her arms. Mason, what are you doing out here? His lips are tinged blue. Water time, he murmurs, waiting for Daddy Ethan. The words tear something clean in two inside her. She scoops him up and runs for the door, shouting for towels, blankets, call the doctor now. By evening, the fever sets in. Mason's cheeks burn against her palm, his small hand limp in hers. The pediatrician's voice is calm but grave. Watch him tonight. Stay close. She sits beside his bed machines, humming softly in the background. Rachel slips in with a tray of soup, setting it down untouched. Vanessa's voice is low, like admitting it too loudly would make it worse. He went looking for him. For Ethan. He thought he was coming. Rachel nods gently. Because Ethan always did. I fired the only person he trusted. Vanessa says, staring at the rise and fall of Mason's chest. And now I'm watching my son breathe like it's a maybe. Rachel rests a hand on her shoulder. Do you want me to call him? Vanessa? Swallows hard. No. He already left once. Why would he come back again? Rachel doesn't answer, but Vanessa can see in her assistant's eyes that she's wrong. He would. The night stretches thin and sleepless. Vanessa sits with her head resting on her arm. Mason's damp curls tangled under her fingertips. Across the hall, the blueprints Ethan once drew are still spread out on her desk, one folded neatly. The small house with the wraparound porch. She's memorized every inch of it. Her eyes drift back to Mason's pale face. Because I didn't, she whispers to the name scribbled at the bottom of the sketch. But I will now. By morning, the fever breaks. Relief comes in a shaky exhale she doesn't bother hiding. She kisses his damp forehead, murmuring, "Hi, baby." Mason blinks up at her. Did Daddy Ethan come? She shakes her head. No, sweetheart. But Mommy's here. He's quiet for a moment. I waited, he says. I know, I got cold. I know, love. Then with a whisper that shatters her, was I bad? Her voice sharpens fierce. No, you were never bad. You were just braver than I was ready for. Later that day, after Mason finally drifts into a deep, steady sleep, Vanessa goes into her office. The windows are still streaked with rain, the storm passed but leaving its marks. She picks up her phone without hesitation this time and dials. It rings twice. Ethan Cole. His voice is steady but not warm. It's me, she says. Vanessa. A pause. I figured. Mason got sick. She begins cutting straight through the formality. He went outside in the rain looking for you. I didn't know how much he'd held on to you, how much you mattered. Her voice cracks. I thought structure could replace presence. I thought safety meant walls. But I forgot children don't need protection from joy. There's a silence on the other end, heavy but alive. Is he okay? Ethan asks quietly. He's stable. Better now. She swallows. I shouldn't have let you go. That's not about professionalism or image. That's me. Finally being honest. He's quiet for a beat, then says, I didn't stay for you. I know. I stayed for him. Vanessa closes her eyes. And now I'm asking you to come back. For him, Ethan says, or for you, Her voice falters. I don't know how to ask for things I don't deserve. Then maybe don't ask, he says. Just let me choose. She exhales. I hope you choose us. I already did, he replies. You just didn't see it. That evening, the front door opens with barely a sound. Ethan steps inside the fading sunlight, catching the damp edges of his jacket. He doesn't announce himself, doesn't linger in the hallway, just moves quietly toward Mason's room like he's done it 100 times before. Vanessa is already there, sitting in the chair by the bed. Mason stirs at the shift in the air, eyelids fluttering open. The moment he sees Ethan in the doorway, a sleepy smile spreads across his face. Daddy, Ethan, he whispers. Ethan steps forward, drops to one knee, and takes the boy's hand gently. I heard you waited, he says softly. Mason nods, eyes half closed. Thank you for waiting. Vanessa watches from the side, her arms not crossed in defense this time, but resting in her lap. For once, she doesn't feel like a CEO managing a crisis, just a mother witnessing her child's world click back into place. In the days that follow, there's no formal truce between Vanessa and Ethan, no big conversation to settle the air. He works. She works. Mason laughs more. That's enough for now. Still restlessness shadows Vanessa. She can't shake the sense that something bigger is pressing at the edges. One night, unable to sleep, she finds herself in the old library, her mother's room. The air smells faintly of pipe smoke and Chanel, as if the years between then and now hadn't really happened. She moves to the far corner where a particular bookshelf has always felt heavier than the others. Pressing behind a row of biographies, her fingers find the hidden latch. A click, and the bottom panel swings open, revealing a slim leather folder tied with crimson ribbon. The paper inside is yellowed, but the ink is bold. At the top, in her mother's elegant handwriting, to my daughter if she ever decides to stop pretending. You were born into a world I built to protect you. But I see now that I raised you behind glass, shiny, strong, untouchable. A daughter no one could crack, not even herself. You think parenting is about outcomes, about making sure they succeed, but it isn't. It's about being the place they fall when the world is too much. It's about being there, not being perfect. If you're reading this, you've likely broken something, or something has broken you. Good. That means you're finally soft enough to feel finally real enough to begin. A child doesn't need a CEO. They need someone who stays, someone who listens when they have nothing left to say. So if you're still trying to be the woman the world claps for, I beg you be the one your child runs to instead. By the third read, the words blur behind her tears. Vanessa presses the letter to her chest, whispering into the quiet. You knew all this time. The next morning, she finds Ethan in the kitchen, wiping down the counter, Mason busy stacking cereal pieces into a precarious tower at the table. She sets the letter on the counter in front of him. It's from my mother, she says. She died before Mason was born. We didn't get along. Ethan scans the first few lines, then pauses. She sounds like she knew more than she let on. She always did. He folds the letter carefully and sets it back down. Thank you for showing me. Vanessa hesitates. Do you think people like us get second chances? Ethan pours her coffee, black, no sugar, exactly how he's seen her take it, and sets it in front of her. Only if we stop using the first one to prove we were right. She stares at the steam curling up from the cup. I've spent my whole life proving things. I know. His voice is gentle. What now? She asks quietly. He leans against the counter, the hint of a smile at his mouth. Maybe start proving you're here. The lot looks smaller than Vanessa imagined. Cracked cement weeds threading up through the gravel, a rusted garden gate leaning against one hinge. Yet Ethan stands at its center like it's still exactly what it was meant to be, the beginning of something. Vanessa lingers by her car trench coat pulled close against the breeze. She's not wearing heels today, just sneakers that still look new, soles barely touched by dirt. "I didn't think you'd come," Ethan says without turning. "I didn't think you'd remember where this place was," she answers, stepping closer. "I didn't," she admits after a pause. "Rachel did." That earns a faint smile from him, but his eyes stay on the lot. She comes to stand beside him. The wind tugs at her collar. "What stopped you from building it?" "The day I got the permits," he says quietly. "Laura died." Vanessa doesn't speak. She was 26, bright, stubborn, wild. Said if we couldn't have more kids, we'd raise everyone else's. He crouches down, letting the dirt sift between his fingers. "I brought our son here when he was 3 months old, stood right in this spot, and whispered to the ground, 'I'm sorry.' Sorry for what? For surviving. For folding the dream instead of carrying it." The wind picks up, rustling a candy wrapper across the gravel. Vanessa crouches beside him, resting her hand lightly on the blueprint case slung under his arm. "Unfold it," she says. He glances at her. "You said yourself," she continues, "this place was drawn with love, pain, and hope. That's exactly the kind of foundation it needs." He doesn't answer. Instead, he stands and unrolls the plans across the hood of her car. The paper edges curl in the breeze, but the vision is still clear. Rooms shaped like open arms, curved walls to soften corners, sunlight streaming into every space. Vanessa traces a line with her finger. "You built this for children who don't get to be children," he says. She looks up at him, something unspoken in her eyes. "Then let's make sure this time they do." By noon, they're both working. Ethan measures ground lines and recalibrates where the garden wall should shift. Vanessa holds stakes sketching adjustments with him, her white button-down smudged with dirt. "You're not afraid to get dirty," he says, glancing at her shirt. "I've spent years in clean boardrooms building cold empires," she replies. "Turns out mud is healing." "Careful," he teases. That almost sounded poetic. "Don't get used to it." They fall into an easy rhythm hammer measure mark until she suddenly stops looking down at her hands. "They're shaking," she says. He walks over, taking her fingers gently. "You're not used to labor. Give it time." She shakes her head. "That's not it. I'm scared." "Of what?" She glances toward the lot, the open sky, the exposed possibility of it all. "I'm scared this isn't enough, that it's just another project, that it won't heal him. Or me." Ethan's voice drops. Healing doesn't come from the roof or the walls. It comes from who stays inside them. Her eyes glisten. "What if I still don't know how to stay?" "Then start small," he says. "Stay for the next conversation, the next splash, the next laugh." He lets go of her hand, smiling faintly. "You don't build a home in one day. You build it moment by moment." A small red hoodie comes bobbing down the dirt path, Mason's boots splashing in a leftover puddle. Rachel trails behind a paper bag in hand, waving from a distance. Mom Mason shouts, breathless with excitement, "Why are your pants dirty?" Vanessa wipes her brow with the back of her wrist, leaving a streak of mud across her cheek. "Because I helped Daddy Ethan dig a foundation." "You digged?" Mason's eyes go wide. Ethan crouches down to meet him. "We dug Buddy." Mason grins. "Can I help dig too?" Vanessa glances at Ethan. There's a brief pause, then she nods. "Absolutely." Rachel sets the bag down on the tailgate of Ethan's truck, pulling out sandwiches. Fuel for the construction crew. Her eyes drift between Vanessa's mud-smeared shirt and Ethan's matching dirt-caked boots, a small smirk forming. "Who are you?" she teases. Vanessa arches a brow. "Someone under reconstruction." Rachel chuckles. "It suits you." They eat sitting on overturned buckets, Mason wedged between them. He keeps scooping at the dirt with his little plastic shovel, convinced he's making the deepest hole in the world. As the sun lowers, long shadows stretch over the bare ground. Vanessa stands with Ethan, watching Mason chase a butterfly across the lot. This is the first time I've built something without expecting applause, she says quietly. Ethan studies her face. How does it feel? She doesn't answer right away. It feels true. They walk toward the truck together, the sounds of Mason's laughter floating behind them. You once said you stayed because my son laughed in my backyard, she says. He nods. Yes. Well, she adds, meeting his eyes today, I laughed in yours. That's why I'm staying. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The air between them feels different, lighter, but grounded. By the time they leave, Mason is asleep in the back seat, clutching his plastic shovel like treasure. Vanessa drives, glancing in the rearview mirror at his peaceful face. She realizes she isn't thinking about board meetings, quarterly goals, or the image she spent years curating. All she can think about is the dirt still under her fingernails, and the way laughter sounded on that lot. Late the next morning, Vanessa stands barefoot in the sunroom, a mug of tea cooling in her hands. Outside, Mason is on the lawn with the garden hose, water arcing high into the air before splattering down in a glittering spray. Watch this, he yells, aiming the stream toward his sneakers. The jet catches his foot, and he squeals, stumbling backward into the grass, laughter spilling out of him in bright, unguarded bursts. Ethan stands a few steps away, arms crossed, letting Mason figure it out without rushing in. When the boy catches his breath, he calls out, "Daddy!" Ethan, look. The words land in Vanessa's chest like a stone dropped in still water, but to her surprise, there's no sting, just a steady warmth. That evening, Ethan comes in through the back door. Shoes muddy, shirt still damp from the hose. Vanessa is at the kitchen counter, chopping vegetables with surgical precision. You heard him, Ethan says, leaning against the doorframe. I did. Did it hurt? She sets the knife down and meets his eyes. No. That's what surprised me. A pause. Does that make me weak? He shakes his head. No. It makes you brave. She exhales slowly. I've spent so long trying to be everything for him. Mom, dad, guardrail, teacher, therapist. Ethan shrugs lightly. Sometimes kids just want someone who'll sit in the mud and hand them worms. Despite herself, Vanessa laughs. That's oddly specific. Because I've done it, he says. Her smile fades into something softer. You didn't fail him, Vanessa. You carried him through the hardest part. You just forgot you're allowed to pass the baton. She looks down at the cutting board. What if I don't know how to let go? You don't have to, he says. You just have to let him reach for someone else without thinking it's because you weren't enough. Later that night after Mason's bath, Vanessa tucks him into bed. Did you have fun today? She whispers. He nods. Daddy Ethan is funny. He is, she agrees. He tilts his head. He's not my real dad, right? Her hand stills on the blanket. No, sweetheart. You had a dad, but he didn't stay. Mason is quiet for a long beat. Then softly. But Ethan stays. Vanessa's throat tightens. Yes, she says. He stays. Downstairs, Ethan is rinsing the dinner dishes, the sound of running water, steady and unhurried. Vanessa steps into the kitchen, leaning against the counter. He asked about his real dad, she says. I told him the truth that he left, but I told him the most important part too. What's that? Ethan asks, drying his hands. That you stayed. Ethan's jaw works for a moment. I never wanted to replace anyone. I just wanted him to feel chosen. Her voice catches. You did more than that. You reminded him what it feels like to be safe and free and allowed to laugh. She swallows. You reminded me too. He studies her face for a moment, then says quietly, You know why kids laugh the most when they feel seen? Why? Because laughter is trust out loud. The truth of it settles between them like something too delicate to touch, but too real to ignore. The sun is barely above the horizon when Vanessa steps onto the foundation site. The air smells faintly of fresh earth and sawdust, the cement still smooth under her sneakers. Ethan is already there, sitting on an overturned bucket sketchbook balanced on his knee, coffee in hand. A pencil is tucked behind his ear like it belongs there. You're early, he says without looking up. Couldn't sleep, she replies, stepping closer. He nods like he understands, because of course he does. Ethan, she says, voice steady but unsure, I want to help with this. Not just write checks, I mean, from the ground up. He glances at her. You want to help build a children's center? I want to build a home, she corrects. For more than one child, for more than one story. He watches her for a long moment, as though he's reading blueprints she hasn't shown him yet. Why, she doesn't hesitate. Because somewhere between my name on Forbes and the echo in my house, I forgot what real living sounds like. And now I remember it's Mason's laugh. It's him saying, Daddy Ethan, without me feeling like I've lost something. Are you asking to be part of the build? He says finally. I'm asking to be taught. Ethan sets the sketchbook down. Would you take direction from me? She blinks. Excuse me. This project needs humility, he says plainly. It needs someone who's not afraid to get dirty, to get it wrong, to get lost. Someone who won't run the first time the walls don't hold. Her chin lifts. You think I'll run? I think you've been running your whole life, he says quietly. The words hit harder than she wants them to. I want to stay this time, she says, voice low, but I need help learning how. He studies her for another moment, then nods. All right, here's the deal. You show up every day, not just with your money, but with your hands, your time, your questions. I will, she says quickly. In return, he adds, I'll teach you how to build something that doesn't need walls to keep people in. That's it. You expected more. I expected a contract. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a single nail, holding it between his thumb and forefinger. This is a promise. We don't build from paper here, we build from choice. She takes the nail from him, the cool metal pressing into her palm like a vow. That afternoon they work side by side. She learns to measure twice and cut once. He shows her how to level a frame and carry weight across her shoulders. She laughs when she misses the nail with the hammer and nearly topples the beam. Rachel stops by with sandwiches, eyebrows raised. Who are you, and what have you done with the woman who used to lose her mind over a chipped manicure? Under reconstruction, Vanessa says simply. Later, they sit on the unfinished porch, just beams and open air. Mason sleeps in Vanessa's lap, his head heavy on her arm. Do you think I'm different now? She asks. Ethan doesn't answer immediately. You're becoming someone new, he says. That's better than being different. Vanessa looks down at her son. He didn't ask for a perfect mother. No child does, Ethan replies. They ask for the one who stays through the imperfect. She leans her head back against the beam. I think I've always been afraid of love without guarantees. That's family, he says simply. And for once, she doesn't argue. The ribbon is nothing fancy, just a strip of white linen tied between two cedar posts at the entrance to the new building. The scent of sawdust and fresh paint hangs in the warm air. It's not finished by any corporate measure, but it's ready in all the ways that matter. Ready to hold laughter. Ready to echo footsteps, ready to be lived in. Ethan stands beside Vanessa, holding the ceremonial scissors someone insisted they use. Rachel hovers off to the side with a camera, snapping photos, not for press releases, but for the walls inside. This story doesn't need headlines, it needs memory. Mason sits cross-legged on the porch steps, swinging his legs and grinning like he owns the place. Vanessa glances at Ethan. It doesn't look like the original plan. He smiles faintly. That's because somewhere along the way the plan changed. For the better, she says. For the real, he corrects. She turns toward the path lined with flower beds freshly planted by the neighborhood kids who will soon fill this place with noise. She inhales the mingled scents of soil and pine. I used to build houses to sell them, she says quietly. Now, I build them to fill them. Ethan's expression softens. You're not the same woman I met months ago. I'm still learning, she admits. He hands her the scissors. Then let this be your first finished lesson. For a moment, she hesitates. Letting go of things is still something she struggles with, but then she smiles and snips the ribbon. The linen falls to the ground like a quiet exhale. The crowd claps, not loud, not staged, just warm. Rachel wipes at her eyes behind sunglasses. Mason claps the loudest. Can I go inside now? Vanessa laughs. Yes, sweetheart. Go explore. He bolts through the door, arms out like wings. Inside, sunlight pours through skylights, landing on soft couches. Bookshelves low enough for small hands and a mural in bright paint that reads, "You're safe here." Vanessa walks the rooms with Ethan, her fingers trailing the door frames. "This feels like somewhere I would have needed as a child. That's how I designed it," he says. They stop in the main room, a circle space with shelves of books and a small stage built from reclaimed wood. On the back wall, a cork board is covered in photos from the Build Vanessa hair, wild and covered in paint. Ethan teaching Mason to hold a level, Rachel hauling bags of soil. Vanessa reaches into her tote and pulls out a folded sheet. She pins it in the center of the board. Ethan leans in. It's a blueprint, but not of the building. The title reads, "The Blueprint of a Family." Beneath the heading are simple sketches, a hand reaching for a smaller hand, a cup of coffee shared at sunrise, a scraped knee being kissed, a cracked voice saying, "I'm sorry," a child laughing, a man staying, a woman letting herself be loved without permission. Ethan stares at it for a long time. "This is better than anything I ever designed. You helped me draw it," she says. He turns to her, his eyes steady. "You lived it." That evening, after the small crowd is gone and the porch lights flicker on, the three of them sit on the steps sharing foil-wrapped sandwiches. Mason leans against Vanessa's shoulder, already drowsy. "Can we live here too?" he asks softly. "We do in a way," she says. "Our hearts do." Mason points at the corkboard through the open doorway. "That pictures us." "All of it is," Ethan says with a small smile. Vanessa glances at him. "I never said thank you." "For what?" "For not walking away the second time." He shakes his head. "It was never a second time. Just a pause. I waited until you were ready to walk with me." Vanessa looks down at her son, and now Ethan reaches over his hand, closing around hers. "Now," he says, "we walk forward." Weeks pass and the center grows not in square footage, but in heart. New children arrive with shy eyes and leave with louder laughs. Stories are shared in reading corners. Walls get drawn on with chalk. Mistakes are made and forgiven. Vanessa spends her mornings barefoot in the garden, snipping lavender dirt under her nails. She's no longer surprised by it. From the far end of the flower beds, Mason's voice rises in a rush of excitement. "Mom, Daddy." Ethan found one, a big one. She looks over to see Ethan kneeling beside him, both crouched over the soil, inspecting a fat, wiggly worm like its rare treasure. Mason bounces on his heels, jeans smudged with mud. "Can we name it?" he shouts. "Only if you promise not to bring it inside this time," she calls back. Ethan glances over his shoulder with a smirk. No promises. Later, they sit on the front steps for lunch, peanut butter sandwiches, orange slices, and lemonade in a mason jar. Mason insists on sitting between them like a bridge. Neither is willing to cross, but both are happy to share. "I heard we're getting a piano next week," Vanessa says, sipping from the jar. "Donated by a retired music teacher," Ethan replies. "She said it's seen more mistakes than a math textbook and still sings. Sounds like all of us," Vanessa says with a small smile. Mason wipes jelly from his chin. "And we're loud." "That's what matters," Ethan says, and they all laugh, the kind of laugh that comes from knowing you've made it not out of the fire, but through it together. That evening, after Mason falls asleep in a pile of coloring books and toy trucks, Vanessa and Ethan sit on the back porch watching the sun slip into orange. The center glows softly behind them, alive, even in stillness. "You know," Vanessa says when we cut the ribbon, "I thought that was the ending, wasn't it?" She shakes her head. "No. That was just the door opening." Ethan is quiet for a long beat. "I used to think family was something you're given, not something you make. And now I know it's who stays when it's hard and laughs when it's easy." Vanessa looks out at the dusky sky. "I spent years building walls to keep everything in place, but the only thing they kept out was the things that could have saved me." Ethan reaches into his satchel and hands her a folded piece of paper. Inside is a sketch of a modest home, 3 bedrooms, wraparound porch swing set in the back. At the bottom, in his neat handwriting, "The house we didn't plan but built anyway." "Is this for me?" she asks softly. He meets her gaze. "No. It's for us." She folds the paper carefully, holding it against her chest. I never imagined this life. Me neither, he says. But maybe the best lives aren't imagined. They're chosen day by day. She leans her head on his shoulder as the porch light flickers on warmer than any chandelier she's ever owned. On a quiet Sunday morning, Vanessa reaches across the breakfast table, takes Ethan's hand, and says simply, I love this. He squeezes her fingers. I love you. No fireworks. No staged moment, just truth. That night she writes herself a letter, not for press, not for show, but for memory. Dear Vanessa, you didn't just build a center. You chose people. You chose presence. You chose love. And now you're home. Upstairs, Mason scribbles on the chalkboard in the main room before bed. We're not perfect, but we stayed. And that's how homes are built. If you like the story, consider sending a super chat to help bring more similar stories. Now click on the video on the screen to hear another story that is equally interesting. Click on the video.